Hello, hello, hello. This is your girl, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and it is my pleasure to bring you. Look like I got lipstick on the top of my lip. How do I do that? Anyway, hey y'all, this is your girl, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, CEO of C-Suite Women's Network, where I help women and a few good men to be the CEOs of their lives. And being the CEO of your life means that you are making the decisions to create the life you desire and deserve. And so I am so glad that you have joined me for part 4 of the 5-part series. Are you a boss or are you just bossy? What does your leadership bring to the yard? And in this series, we have been exploring what it means to truly be a boss. And in day 1, we discovered that being a boss truly means being a leader, using your influence to create the impact that you want to see in your community, in your business, in your environments, in the world around you. And of course, being a boss stands for it's an acronym for be the boss you want to be. Own your professional and personal SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. See your vision for your leadership and set your mind on inspiring others through your behaviors and actions. And so tonight we're going to do part 4, where we're going to discuss the concept of seeing your vision for your leadership. What does that truly mean? Because, as a CEO, one of the things that's really important as a CEO is your vision, right? You have a vision that becomes an executed idea. So CEOs come up with an idea, they develop a strategy, they work with the team to inspire that strategy. They inspire a team to execute that strategy. So that's what you want to be thinking about, of course, as being a CEO. So let's talk about what does it truly mean to see your vision for your leadership. Because, being a great leader doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen by osmosis. Certainly, there are some people who have natural leadership abilities. Certainly, there are people who are more inclined to own their leadership and step into it fully than others. But it is truly cultivated. And one of the things that I've talked about on day 1, and it's important to kind of realize where you are in this. You have different kinds of CEOs. You have a CEO on the rise. This is a person who's coming into their leadership. They don't necessarily have a position yet. They don't have a leadership responsibilities, but they aspire to be a leader. Then you have a CEO on the move. These are people who have a leadership position. They may have their own business. They may be a manager. They may be, have an actual leadership position on their jobs, or they may be recognized as a leader and even think of themselves as a leader, but they're emerging as a leader. And then you have a CEO. This is a person who is an established leader, right? They've been a leader for years. They've recognized themselves as leaders. They're comfortable in their role as a leader. But regardless of where you are in these different stages of leadership, and remember, leadership is about influencing. So if you have your own business, you still need to be a great leader because you are influencing others. And if you're on the job, of course, you're working with the team. And if you own your own business, eventually you're going to be leading the people who are going to help you to have that, make that business successful. So you always need leadership skills. So, regardless of where you are on that stage, if you are an aspiring leader, a CEO on the rise, if you are an emerging leader, a CEO on the move, or if you are indeed a CEO, an established leader, you always want to have a vision for your leadership, because what shows up on the outside begins with how you see yourself here. So it's really important to have a vision and be deliberate about the kind of leader you're going to be. So there are 5 critical questions that I want to challenge you to ask yourself as you are beginning to develop your vision for your leadership. The first thing that you have to ask and be deliberate about and be able to articulate for yourself is, who do you want to be? who do you want to be as a leader? That's a very important question, to be able to identify the kind of leader, the type of characteristics. Perhaps you look to a person that you believe to be a great leader. Perhaps you read books on leadership that talk about, what it means to be a great leader, and then you decide for yourself who it is that you want to be. The second question that you have to ask yourself is, who are you now? Which is why in day 3, we talked about the importance of owning your personal and professional strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Because that helps you to identify who you are now and who you are not. Because you can't decide where you're going to go if you don't know where you are. So that's the second question. The third question is to then ask yourself, how do I get from here to there? How do I get to where I want to be, where I am now, to where I want to be? Then the fourth question is, how do you make the change sustainable? Because being a leader is about, sustainability, and it's about continuous improvement. So you don't decide today that you're going to be more compassionate, or that you're going to be more empathetic, or that you're going to be a better communicator, and then tomorrow all of a sudden it happens. It's an evolutionary process. Also, you've got to think about ways to develop habits such that the way that you want to be as a leader is an innate part of who you are. So it's not something that's unnatural. So you have to figure out, when you make a change in your leadership, how do you make that sustainable? And then so the fifth question that you have to ask is, who can help you? Who can help you to build up the skills that you need? Because being a great leader is something that's not done in a vacuum. So it's not something that you are the only person, that figures it out, right? You've got to work with other people, because first of all, to be a leader, you got to be leading somebody. So you at least need a team of one, right? So as you are developing your leadership skills, it's really important to ask yourself, who do I need to help me? Sometimes it is your peers. You need the people who you work with to let you know how you are as a leadership. And it's hard sometimes to ask for that feedback, but it's really important that you do. So sometimes you need your supervisors, the persons to whom you report. Sometimes you need to ask your customers, your clients, your vendors, your colleagues. And sometimes you need to work with a coach. So it's all about understanding where you're getting this necessary feedback, because the people that you get the feedback from may not be the people who can help you to do something with it. So that's where you may work with a counselor or a coach or a connector, or someone who can help you to refine who you are, to become who you want to be. So the first thing that I want to challenge you, because all of this, anytime I do these, I always want to challenge people to do something different, to be better, to actually commit to listening to what I'm saying or what you hear anywhere, and commit to taking action. So the first action that I want you to commit to is that I will be deliberate about the kind of leader I want to be. I will be deliberate about the kind of leader I want to be. So if you are willing to take that challenge, put that in the feed. Say, I will be deliberate about the kind of leader I want to be. Because again, you don't just poof become a leader. You have to work at it. You have to be committed to developing habits, behaviors, and action that support the kind of leader you want to be. And you have to be constantly aware. That's why in day 3, we really focus on the concept of self-awareness. How important it is to know who you are and who you're not. Okay? So be deliberate in being the kind of leader you want to be. So let's move on to thinking about, as you are developing your vision for your leadership, what are some key areas that as a CEO of your life, of your business, on the job, in the community, in your home, what are 3 key skills or key areas where you must sharpen your skills in order to set your vision for the kind of leader you want to be? The first area is communication. This is so incredibly important because most leaders fail or succeed on the strength of their ability to communicate. That's something that's important to remember. That's a writer downer. You will fail or succeed based on the strength of your communication skills. Because a lot of times we, as leaders, as CEOs, we employ this strategy of having expectations that are up here that we don't share with anybody else. Guess what? No one can read your mind, okay? If you want people to do things, if you want people to know what's important, if you need something from somebody, you have to tell them. Communication is so key. Many professional and personal relationships disintegrate because people don't talk to each other. They don't have communication. They're talking, but they're not communicating. Here's what communication is. It means the words leave your mouth, the other person hears it and comprehends it, and then gives you feedback to indicate that they have comprehended what you said. So it's a dialogue. It's a back and forth. It's an interaction. So you really have to think about how well do you keep the people on your team informed? Do you consistently tell them of your expectations? How do you do so? How do you tell them when you're disappointed? Because, we'll be mad as stank at somebody and not tell them and then expect them to change because we're mad as stank at them. Well, guess what? They don't know that you're mad. And that's something that's incredibly important as a leader, is to avoid these passive-aggressive behaviors where you're mad at somebody and you won't tell them, but then you act all mad and stank with them and, won't take accountability for your own actions, for your own behaviors, your own emotions. You have to tell people what's on your mind. We a lot of times expect, well, they ought to know. No, they don't. They just don't. Okay, and it doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean they don't care. It's just that we all bring our own experiences to how we interpret conversation, how we interpret interactions, how we interpret, what we're doing. And so it's important to remember that you and I can hear the same message spoken in the same language, using the same exact words, but I'm going to have an interpretation that's different than yours because I interpret it through the lens of my experiences. I interpret it through the lens of my desires, my incentives, my motivations, my hurts, my pains. So all of these different individual experiences that we have shape the interpretations that we experience when we're having a conversation. So, we can't expect people to interpret things the way we want them to. And we just have to treat everyone as if they don't understand. And tell them, because again, it's not necessarily intuitive for somebody to know what it is you want them to do. So as a leader, you've got to be able to communicate. So that's one thing. How well do you keep people informed of your expectations, your disappointments, your needs? Okay? The next thing that you want to think of with respect to communication is how do you resolve conflict? Because as a leader, you're always going to face conflict. Conflict's not a bad thing. It's really good. It just simply means differences in opinion. So how do you deal with that? How do you resolve it? That is something that's key as a leader, is being able to resolve conflict. How do you share your personal values and beliefs with others? Because if you don't share your personal values and beliefs, people don't know what's important to you and what's not. And a lot of times, we get all mad at people because you ought to know that's important to me. No, they don't. Okay? So it's really important for people to understand what are your personal values and beliefs, because that allows them to make decisions about the compatibility between your beliefs and theirs, and it allows you to make that decision as well. Also, it's important for us to really appreciate how do we communicate. Not what we communicate, but how. What's the tone of our voice? What are our facial expressions? So what if you tune into this and I'm talking to you about a boss and you sitting there and, I'm talking about, how important it is to communicate, and all you see is this, you see me frowning. how does my facial expression, my tone, the way my body mannerisms impact my message? Well, I'm having a positive message, but if I'm sitting here, you need to do this, you need to do that, you're going to be like, girl, calm down, what's going on with you, right? It's going to turn you off. So we have to be really conscious about how we communicate. So I've shared many times, I have a resting bitch face, and I'm not trying to cuss, but that's just what it's called, right? My natural face is a frown. I don't know why I frown, okay? I'm happy, but I frown. So I have to make a conscious effort to smile when I talk, so that you're not watching the video and I'm sitting here talking like this the whole time, because then you're like, okay, what's wrong with her? Okay, but this is something that we really, really need to be conscious of. How do we communicate in writing? How do we communicate verbally? Now, I'm a lawyer, right? So my communication style, my written communication style tends to be very formal, very to the point, very sterile, okay? Because that's how I'm trained to write. So I have to be very conscious about when I send emails that I put the little happy faces or something, or really think about the softness of my words so my email doesn't come across as cold, okay? So we have to think about that. Are you too casual in your conversation? Can you write? Because some of us need to improve literally our grammatical skills when we send written communications. So, you really need to think about how are you communicating. And here's a way to think about it. Reread and listen to the things you send out to people. How would it sound to you? Sometimes you have to have the conversation with yourself to recognize the tone of how you intend to say something with somebody else. So, and the last thing that's important with respect to communication is this. Is there consistency between what you say and what you do? Okay? Because you can't tell people that it's important for them to communicate openly and honestly, and then you don't do the same thing yourself. So check yourself on how consistent you are between what you say and what you do. So next, let's move on to the second thing that's really, so let's back up. So as your challenge is, I commit to communicating clearly and timely. I commit to communicating clearly and timely. And remember this, people cannot read your mind. You have to tell people what you want. And you cannot assume they know. And you can't hold them, you can't be mad at them because they don't know. Because again, we all bring our own experiences into situations that are going to lend itself to different interpretations. And priorities. That's the key thing. All right, so the second thing that as a leader you want to be thinking about literally in casting your vision is focus. What is your focus? How strong is your focus? What are your strengths with respect to your focus? So do you give adequate attention to detail? Because something that's really important to recognize is that, people exist on a scale of vision to execution, all right? So visionary people aren't really concerned with details. They're big picture, their concepts, they're very creative. Execution people, they all about getting the thing done. In between, you've got the people who are focused on the people, and you've got the people who are focused on the details, right? The detail folks want to know everything. They want to know how every I is dotted, how every T is crossed. And so you really have to think about where you are on that spectrum. Are you the visionary who doesn't really get caught up in the details? You just focus on the big picture? Or are you the person who's focused on execution and that's all you focus on? Are you the person who's focused on the team, the personal aspects of it? Or are you the person that's focused on the details, the minutia? And so wherever you are on this spectrum, it's important to understand, because the details are important, but minutia isn't, perhaps. And so where you know that you're a visionary, you need to partner yourself with someone who's good at details. And so this is really important in understanding how you build your team. Because that's why, again, on day 2, we looked at our personal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Are you balanced with individualized attention to team members? Okay? Because not only should you be focused on the task, you have to be focused on the people. And are you spending too much time with a team member to the detriment of others. Sometimes it's because we like to work with who we like to work with. And so sometimes we may favor someone because our working styles are more compatible than others. Sometimes we're spending all of our time with the problem folks instead of resolving a problem by giving that person an invitation to work on somebody else's team. In other words, getting rid of them, you know. So you really want to be thinking about how you are spending your time. Focus on the people that you're working with. Are you aware, do you avoid a narrow focus on goals to the detriment of the group's needs or individual needs? Because if you're that execution person, you are focused on getting the thing done. And so you may be so focused on the outcome that you become oblivious to the people around you, to their needs, to individual needs. And so it's important to have that balance. Hi, Gazi. Thank you so much. Also, are you aware of the group's needs? Because it's really important as a leader to ensure that you address the with them. What's in it for me, for your team? Because it can't be about me, 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 me. I want y'all to get this done. You really need to pay attention to how much you say I when you're talking about what you want the team to do. You really need to condition yourself to thinking about using the word we, the team, us, what we're going to do together, and really mean that. Don't just use the word and don't mean it. Because if you can be so focused on your self-interest that it works to the detriment of the group, which works to the detriment of your self-interest. The more you are invested in addressing the group's needs, hearing the group, making sure that they have the tools, resources that they need, the more likely you are to achieve your goals. Because you can't achieve your goals by yourself. You need a team. So that's something that's really important to think about as a leader when you are focusing on or when you're creating your vision and thinking about your level of focus. So the commitment here is, I will focus on the shared vision of the team. I will focus on the shared vision of the team. Because again, it can't be all about you. It has to be about what do we need to do to get this goal accomplished. And so the last area that you want to focus on as it relates to developing your vision for your leadership is flexibility and adaptability. How flexible are you? How malleable are you? How dynamic are you as a leader? Because one of the worst mistakes you can make as a leader is to get so invested in doing something one way that you lose innovation, you lose ingenuity, you lose creativity, and eventually you lose your edge. So really think about your flexibility and adaptability. You know, do you openly seek differences when you're solving problems? Is it your way or the highway, right? Do you ask your team for their input? Because you have a team for a reason. You don't have to come up with all the ideas yourself. You don't have to do everything yourself. One of the biggest lessons that I had to learn as a leader is to trust my team. I mean, I had selected these people. I had given them responsibilities. I had to trust them that their ideas were actually going to be something that was going to work. And what I found was that when I actually listened to my team and got their perspectives, we had a better outcome than anything I would have ever done by myself. So really think about that. Do you suggest new ways of looking at how to complete assignments, how to solve problems, how to do things? Are you constantly asking yourself, why do I do it this way? Why do we do it this way? Because it's really important to ask that, which is why I said conflict is good. Because when you have somebody who challenges you to say, have you considered this alternative? Why are we doing it this way? Have we ever thought about doing it another way? Have we ever done it in any way other than the way we do it? Conflict is good in that aspect because it's going to generate innovation. It's going to generate greater efficiencies. And, you know, now there's a difference between conflict and agitation. Agitation is just the person who always got something to say just because they want to have something to say. They're not truly trying to get to, excuse me, a better outcome. They just want to agitate stuff. So that's a difference between conflict. And my dog has come in here. I'm hoping she doesn't jump up and knock the lamps down, knock all my lighting over. But anyway, you know, Zara always got to insert herself into the video. Come around this way, baby. All right, here she is. Say hey. There's Zara, my faithful team member. So anyway, we're just gonna keep it going. All right. So are you flexible? You know, do you re-examine critical assumptions? Because a lot of times, you know, we have these critical assumptions that define who we are, that define how we do things, that define what's important with respect to our team. And so these things become such a huge part of who we are that, you know, we begin to accept them as the way things are. And as a leader, you've got to constantly re-examine your critical assumptions to just simply ask, is this still the right approach? It's not second guessing yourself. It's not being indecisive as much as it is engaging in this critical thinking and being certain that you're not becoming stagnant because you've become so accustomed to doing things a certain way that you don't try any other ways. No, we're not finna do all that. Okay, so all right, my assistant is gone. All right, and then the final thing is, do you engage your team or others to look at problems from different angles? And, you know, again, as a CEO, one of the most important things you've got to remember is you don't have to do everything by yourself. You don't. And it is a liability when you do. You have a team, use them. Use their strengths to offset your weaknesses. Use their ideas to stimulate critical thinking. And don't be afraid to ask, to seek expert help. Because as a CEO, you're not expected to know everything. One of the things that, if you've ever paid attention to CEOs of companies, they will constantly engage consultants. They will bring new people into the team, those who are successful, because they recognize that sometimes you need to look to external sources to get internal answers. And it's not a matter of not trusting yourself or not trusting your internal intelligence, if you will, but it is, again, bringing in that different perspective, a different angle, a different way of looking at things to re-examine your critical assumptions. So the takeaway here is, I commit to being dynamic in my thinking and in my action. I commit to being dynamic in my thinking and my action. So now you do have some guidance on how you should be thinking about seeing your vision for your leadership. And on tomorrow, or on day 5, I'm going to give you the actual steps for doing that. So today I introduced the concepts for what you need to be thinking about as you begin creating the vision for your leadership. And again, that's your communication, your focus, and your flexibility. Okay? Then on day 5, what we will do, I'll actually go through the steps that you can take to actually create a vision for your leadership, but not just a vision, but an action plan. Because vision without action is just a dream. So as a CEO, you want to have vision backed up by action so that you're actually able to effectuate change on what it is that you want to do. So thank you so much for joining me on day 4 of the 5-part series, Are You a Boss? Or are you just bossy? What does your leadership bring to the yard? Because we want to explore being better bosses, being better leaders, so that we can have greater influence and do even greater things. So I hope that you will join me on tomorrow, on day 5, when we close out this series, and we're going to look at setting our minds on inspiring others through our behaviors and our actions. And also in day 5, I'm going to give you the steps to actually bring your vision to life, because we're going to focus on behavior and actions. Because again, vision without action is just a dream. Vision plus action equals execution. So Thank you so much for joining me on day 4 of the 5-part series. Are you a boss? Or are you just bossy? What does your leadership bring to the yard? This has been day 4, where we have talked about seeing the vision for your leadership. And as always, I'd like to share with you, if you need some help, if you need some external assistance with being able to create the vision for your leadership, please text me at 228-238-7997. Again, that's 228-238-7997. Give your first name, last name, email address, and let me know, I want to be a better boss. And I will give you a call and we'll talk about how we can help you, how I can help you to cultivate the vision for your leadership and bring it to fruition. So with that, I'm going to close out, and I look forward to connecting with you during the last part of this series, part 5, where we will focus on setting our minds on inspiring others through our behavior and action. Because we want to be a boss. We want to make sure that we are being the boss we want to be, being the boss that we want, that we're owning our personal and professional SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that we are seeing the vision for our leadership, and that we are setting our mind on inspiring others through our behaviors and our actions. So I will see you next time on part 5 of the 5-part series. Are you a boss or are you just bossy? What does your leadership bring to the yard? I look forward to connecting with you then. Until then, this is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, the CEO of C-Suite Women's Network, where I work with women and a few good men to be the CEOs of their lives. And being the CEO of your life means that you are making the decisions to create the life you desire and deserve. With that, I'm out. I'll see you next time.